So, how is your Friday the 13th going so far? Did you experience any bad luck, good luck, or is it just a regular Friday to you? Well, when it comes to curses and evil, maybe both intertwines with one another. Maybe it's the house, or maybe it's the family. Well, considering the day, here's a good video for you for the evening. Hi, my name is Jessa. Please join me as we look together our top 10 evil places that cursed real families. Oh, and before we begin, in the last video was in top 10 Graham Hancock Goblecki Tepi facts you never knew, I gave you guys a riddle. Did you get it? The riddle was, where do you take a sick boat? The answer is, drumroll please, to the doctor. Get it? Anyways, your next riddle will be at the end of this video. So let's get started. Number 10, 455A Sacket Street. I mean, haunted apartments are just as much of a thing as a haunted house, but not as common. When it comes to 455A Sacket Street, apartments like this tends to have a high turnover rate, and even more higher as it has the likelihood of something or someone evil living in before you even moved in. Or did they, or whatever it is, moved out at all? In a confession article, one woman writes, as she lived in this apartment on January 14, 2007, she moved into the location when she was 14 years old. And the moment they moved in, something just wasn't right. After 2 weeks of moving in, she was physically violated by a man who lived in her neighborhood. According to an elderly woman who lived next door, she mentioned that no one had occupied the apartment for more than a year at a time since as long as she could remember. She also related terrible tragedies befall all who have said to live within a few weeks after moving in, continuing through the day after they moved out. One day, her brother and herself heard children crying and laughing one day downstairs, and when they tried to leave their mother's room, they were locked in. Even though there was no lock, after an hour before it finally opened, their mother was downstairs doing the laundry when the lights turned off in the basement and she felt a cold, scaly hand grab her shoulders. After they finally did move out, the people who did move in after tried to renovate the basement, where they found the body of a little boy in the walls. Since then, they haven't been haunted after they left, but they still definitely feel horrible vibes from the place, and to always say to trust your intuition. Number 9, the Villisca Axe House. On June 10, 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore were bludgeoned to death inside of their home in the Villisca, Iowa. Their 4 children and 2 friends who were also spending the night there were also killed. And to this day, the crime remains unsolved. Their home is considered one of the most haunted houses in the country, and those who are up for the paranormal are drawn to it. People even pay $400 and more to stay just for one night. Tours have been cut short by children voices, falling lamps, moving ladders, and flying objects, as well as apparently a paranormal investigator had hurt himself after spending the night, as skeptics after visiting the cursed home turned into believers. In all honesty though, we will never truly know what happened on that dark night inside the home of JB and Sarah Moore. Those who committed the crimes were never caught, and given the many years that have passed, their dark secrets was obviously carried with them to their graves. For some, the speculations was almost too much to bear, and in 1912 the townspeople began to distinguish and identify themselves by who they believed committed the crime. Friendships became strained and in many cases broken. The town stood then, and in many cases still stands divided. Number 8, Chop Chop House. What a name for this one, huh? The house is located at 805 W. Linden Street in Idaho. Covered in a layer of soot and windows broken and boarded up, the trash strewn about the yard, the 2-story craftsman-style home looks like an abandoned horror movie set. Locals refer to the boys' house, or even more eyebrow-raising, the Chop Chop House, which is reference to the gruesome homicide that took place there more than 3 decades ago. According to this lore, which was based in the mid-80s, a man was killed by 2 drug dealers in the house, and his body was chopped into 26 pieces, which were spread out throughout the Treasure Valley. According to this lore, this was based in the mid-80s. A man was killed by the 2 drug dealers in the house, where his body was chopped up into 26 pieces, which were spread out throughout the Treasure Valley. According to many who lived in the neighborhood or even rented out a room in the house itself, the basement in particular exudes some haunted energy. There have been reports of shadowy figures appearing and disappearing out of nowhere, strange liquid oozing down the walls, and more. Number 7, 1000 Lombard Street. When the socialite and famed journalist Patricia Montandon moved to her apartment on the famous Crooked Block in San Fran in 1960, she was pretty content for the first 8 years, and it wasn't until she hosted a astrology-themed party where things started going awry. In her memoir, The Intruders, Patricia mentioned a series of hauntings that occurred from tragic to bizarre behavior of an erratic and vexed tarot reader who may have cursed the apartment the night of that fateful party. From eerie laughter and faint music seemingly coming from within the apartment on repeat, to constant rushes of cold winds despite locked doors and windows, and strange disembodied footsteps and the paranormal events that were occurring rapidly. Patricia was also a victim of physical crimes following the party, including a robbery, harassment, possibly arson, and even more tragedy struck when 3 of her close friends also died in a fire at the apartment. Number 6, Kasha House. The Kasha House of Kaimuki in Honolulu, Hawaii had been stuck with mystery and unexplained situations, and its location wasn't in the public eye till it was announced in the Honolulu Star, a press news outlet, just months after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. According to reports, the police responded to a call from a woman shouting she's trying trying to kill my children, she's trying to kill my children. When they arrived, they found a young Hawaiian boy, 3 of his sisters, and his mother all shrieking and being tossed around by nothing. About 30 years later, other occupants of the same home, or just 1 block away from the original spooky house, reported very similar attacks by an unseen force, which responding officers corroborated. The 2 most common theories surrounding the source of these reports attacks are a demonic shape-shifting creature of Japanese folklore origins known as the Kasha, and the angry spirit of the corpse buried in a backyard. Though it has been torn down and replaced by condos, the dark energy still lingers. According to locals and residents, it's still unsure who lives there now, but whoever does, I hope they're doing okay. Number 5, the Lemp Mansion. The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, which is known to be one of the most haunted places in America due to its tragic history and links to a wealthy beer baron, Adam Johann Lemp, a German immigrant, was the first person to produce beer in the US. His son William Lemp would also take over the business and try to make it more successful. When he wanted to live closer to the industrial plant and started a new family with his wife, they built the foreboding home in the historic park right over a cave system. Everything changed when William took his own life after his favorite son Frederick died due to TB, and later his wife died from cancer in the house and the younger daughter followed suit, and then the company began faltering during the Prohibition era. When this happened, William Jr., one of the sons, died the same room and the same way his dad did. Another brother of William Jr. also apparently shot his dog before he did on himself, and in the same year the youngest surviving child sold the house and turned it into a boarding house. This is when the hauntings began. According to some reviews of attending the mansion, witnesses have experienced burning sensations, slamming doors, disembodied moaning and crying, and as amongst other things. Number 4, Hotel Cecil. Gotta mention one of the most famous haunted places for sure, and that is the Hotel Cecil. If you're a true crime and paranormal super fan, you've likely already heard a lot about it, so where to begin? Many bad things have happened here after all. There's literally an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to its violent history. And at some point in the 30s, one man was pinned to the exterior wall by a truck. I don't know how to say this. A woman got rid of her newborn in the building in 1944, and the string of those who took their own lives continued into the 60s. In 1962, a woman jumped from the 9th floor window and landed on a pedestrian, and it's worth noting that 2 other women who jumping out of their windows while their husbands were asleep in the room. But of course, the most noted death we are aware of in regards to modern times is the disappearance and death of the 21-year-old traveler Elisa Lam. A few weeks after Lam went missing, her body was discovered in the rooftop water tank after visitors and tenants complained about a funky taste in the water. They later found odd footage of her in the elevator from the night of her disappearance, and it's difficult to make out what it is she's doing. It looks like she's either playing hide and seek with someone outside the elevator, or she's frightened and attempted to hide from someone, but the doors won't seem to shut. Authorities ruled the death accidental drownage, but because you need a key access to the roof, many suspect foul play. Number 3, the Winchester Mystery House. I don't get lost in my house as it's pretty straightforward, but would you ever live in a house like this? In 1886, Sarah Winchester left her home in Connecticut for California to start a new life after losing many family members from her own child, her husband, as well as her parents and extended family. The millionaire heiress believed suffering such a great loss was due to the curse of her family's invention of the Winchester rifle, which was used diligently during many battles and wars. The millionaire heiress believed suffering such a great loss was due to the curse of her family's invention of the Winchester rifle, which was used diligently during many battles and wars. After confining with a spiritual medium, they concluded Sarah was haunted by the victims of the rifle, and she needed to build a home where she could escape. And since she was rich and had a passion for architecture, Sarah then proceeded for the rest of her life, dedicating running away from spirits by developing the most complicated and unique home the world has ever seen. From doors that lead to nowhere to the 2nd floor out of the wall, windows that look out to nowhere, bricked up walls, and rambling rooms, this mansion then turned to be the famous Winchester Mystery House. And since its creation, and it had been noted after Sarah's death that she still haunts the location. Did Sarah create a place that ended up cursing her more with her obsession, or was this just a way for her to cope for the many losses she had endured in her life? What do you think? Number 2, Ammons. In 2011, LaToya Ammons moved into a small single-story home in Gary, Indiana, with her mother and her 3 young children. Only a few short months later, after reported experiencing the worst residential demon infestation, Ammons brought her family to the emergency room in an attempt to help them free them of the demonic possession. After extensive evaluations by police, members of the local church, hospital staff, and the Department of Child Protective Services, the witnesses were torn. Half of them believed the house was infested by spirits and demons, and that the family was generally possessed by something paranormal, while the other half blamed psychological issues. The good news is that the Ammons family was able to find peace when they moved out out to Indianapolis, but the story and the house itself were still getting tons of attention. The tale of the story has reached the ears of ghost hunters like Zach Baggins, who bought the property for a 2014 shoot of a documentary Inside, and even though Baggins proceeded to tear it down, the house was then taken up by Oscar nominee Lee Daniels, who was up to direct the film The Deliverance, starring Stranger Things Caleb McLaughlin, based on the story. Number 1. Amityville Horror House. If you've seen the movie, you definitely know about this one. Amityville Horror House in Amityville, New York was one of the most popular and devastating tragic cases that occurred in the US. This Dutch colonial sitting pretty on the Ocean Avenue in Long Island, New York is perhaps the country's and world's haunted house. On November 13, 1974, Louise and Ronald DeFeo Sr. and 4 of their children were killed inside the home. Their eldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., went unharmed as he was ultimately charged with the crime. The year after the brutal crime, the Lutz family moved into the house, which still housed many of the original furniture and decor from its previous tenants. Then, just 28 days after moving in with their 3 young children, the Lutz fled the house in a panic. In a result of the home having another family panicked within its walls, the family worked with the author Jay Anson on the best-selling book turned movie hit, The Amityville Horror, which tells the dramatic as well as controversial tale of the demonic and unseen forces that drove them out. The Lutz family and their story had been noted widely as a hoax, but many people have said and truthfully believed even before the DeFeo family's untimely death was haunted even prior, and that there was something extremely unsettling about the house to begin with. So, did you have a favorite? Did you learn anything today? Let me know. Oh, and for your next riddle, are you ready? Which fish costs the most? Be sure to put your answer in the comments below, and I will reveal the answer in the next video, top 10 reasons you would never survive the Persian Empire. That's all for today. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jessa. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see your beautiful faces in the next one. Bye!